Welcome to Beyond the Borders podcast.
where every story is a journey and every journey is an inspiration.
Beyond the Borders is all about highlighting the incredible cross cultural stories that exist in our communities.
We want to provide a platform for their story to shine because they are so important in today's world.
These stories not only celebrate the diversity of human experience,
But also foster empathy, understanding, and connection.
Our mission here is to amplify these voices, so stick around and join us as we explore these stories throughout the season. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Beyond the Borders podcast. We're so happy to be here with you today. My name is Natalie, and I'm your host for the day. With me in the studio today, I have my co-host Josue and Rosie, and our guest for today is Fartun. So thank you so much, Fartun, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so as we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Fartun Frey. I was born in Kenya and I was raised in Saudi Arabia. I came to United States around age 14 or 15. I finished high school here and went to college. I got my associate degree in art, and I have a bachelor degree in healthcare management and minor in social work from MSU Denver.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you said you were born in Kenya and your family is from Somalia, right?
Yes,
Awesome. Thank you. So I didn't know that you had an associate's degree in art.
I do.
Yeah,
I
talk
do.
to us about that.
So I started as when I first started attending college, I started with Community College of Denver. And soon when I was doing my associate degree, I got pregnant with my son, and I had to take some time off for, through the pregnancy and maternity leave. And soon after my son turned like 3 months old, I was able to get back and complete my associate degree in art.
Wow, that's really cool. Did you have hopes to be an artist?
It was just like a general a study course, like prerequisite for other majors and things like that. So majors like healthcare or other things. So it was like combined courses that I completed in CCD. And from there, I moved into studying in bachelor in health and science field.
Really cool. That's
So I did my 2 years of undergrad at CCD and then completed the other at Metro.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Man, Fartun, I don't know, what really to say, but like you are you are from Somalia.
Yes, I am.
So, born in Kenya,
Yes.
raised in
Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
and then you came here when you were 14.
Yes.
To the U.S. when you were
Alright.
14? Wow.
So, there's this like term where we usually like third culture kid. Do you like see yourself as a third culture? Like, because you didn't grow up in Somalia, have you ever been to Somalia? Do you know anything about Somalia?
I would consider myself, like you said, third, what they call it, cultural of the Somali. I never seen Somali. I was born in Kenya. So my family flee the war, and my parents, they have me in Kenya. So after that, like around age 4 or 3, my family moved to Saudi Arabia, and then I was like living with my grandparents and the rest of my family because of the war. And ever since, like most of the stuff that I remember, it was like just the Arabic culture, and like I developed adapting to other cultures, and a little bit far from the Somali culture itself. People always like get surprised when they find out that I'm a Somalian, and like it has been a hard, it's been a part of my life that's been stolen because of the war and what's happening in Somalia. I always like concern about safety. Like if I want to go visit, is it really safe? Is it place that I can go back someday and establish a life there. But so far, like I was able to adapt any place that my family moved and able to achieve things that I wanted to do in life, like get an education. Being first generation who graduated from college means a lot to me, and it's something that I want to teach my kids. And I always talk to clients that I work with and friends and try to encourage our community, like the African community, to not give up because of a war that's happening in your country. You still have a potential of doing other things in life, and we can do a lot more. But a lot of times I think about, oh, what would have been like if Somalia was no war? Like, how would my life be? My family, they were wealthy and had everything. So it just makes me like, think about it sometimes,
You know,
what it would have been.
and I'm gonna follow up on that too. You said something at the end that is really interesting. You said, what would have been your life if there were no war in Somalia? Your family, were wealthy, and so what do you think about the stereotype of African moving to the U.S. and or anywhere? And most people don't think that those people used to have a life,
Yeah.
used to be wealthy, and then something happened and they have to give up on everything and move somewhere where they don't have anything at all.
And I just want to tack on to his question as well.
Yeah.
Especially, I think this is especially a relevant question given the type of work that you do, right? And that we see the disparities that exist between African refugees and everybody else. And there's this kind of idea that, like, African refugees have been accustomed to displacement and that they didn't have as nice a standard of life as, for example, an Afghan refugee or a Ukrainian refugee may have. And so whatever they're given is just okay. And so as somebody who, like you said, had a part of their life stolen from them due to conflict, and then also your family having been in a position where they were wealthy and they were okay, and if there wasn't a war in Somalia, they would have stayed and had a good life. Like,
Yeah.
what do you have to say to those stereotypes and these systems that exist, especially in the work that you do?
So, first,
Let's let her.
Yeah, no, the work that we do, making sure that she's not talking about ACC.
no.
That's not being said.
No. Like,
Yeah, it's just in the resettlement system.
in the resettlement system, in like in general, like even people that I meet, like without like my work and stuff, like friends, like family members, people that I've been here living with, since the day that I came. It's just like tough to see how other people like label us, like it's kind of like putting a label to someone, saying, oh yeah, you from Africa, you have no education, like you don't know nothing, kind of things like that. It's hard. Like I face sometimes where people like go back to your home on the bus going to school on campus. And I'm like, well, we all are immigrant. Like it doesn't matter whether you came from Germany, you came from Italy, like back in the days, and you live here. It doesn't matter the skin color. There's a lot, like this country is belong to the Indian American, Native Indian Americans. So anyone else like should know what exactly they're saying before you just come and say, go back to your country. And like the stereotypes that people have about most immigrants is not right. Like there are some doctors that come here, they cannot practice the doctor, they have to start from zero. System here, it's tough. You go to school for many years and spend a lot of time, energy. Sometimes you don't find certain jobs in certain areas because of who you are or your name on that application. Most of us that like had a lot and lost everything, they kind of like accept starting again,
Yeah.
even though it's hard,
Yeah.
because they flee in war. They're not, leaving their country by choice. And being here to do so, it takes a lot of courage. Like, imagine if you ask any American who have never been in any war or any kind of displacement
Yeah.
to go tell them, go ahead and find yourself, learn the language, fit in the society, figure it out the culture, and leave all your life, your education behind and start from the beginning. It will be so much for them to be able to adapt that. And for us doing that, it's a huge. And facing everyday discrimination, or even people coming and saying like rude things to you, assuming that you don't speak English well. One of the things that we always see, oh, what is this accent from, or something like that. So
Yeah, it's tough. And I wonder too, for you in particular, especially given that you kind of did grow up in all of these different cultures. And like you said, like you became accustomed to the way of life in Saudi Arabia. You speak Arabic, all of these things that like cause you to relate closely to, like Arab culture, right? Over Somali culture, for example.
yeah.
Do you find it difficult when you're in Somali circles, like in the diaspora? Do you find it difficult to fit in, or do you feel like you fit in perfectly? No issue.
I struggle fitting in like the Somali society, the Arab society, even the American society, because like my whole identity has been stolen. My country is a war. Nothing is there. Like I did not live in Somalia and grew up in that culture. So now I'm like, there are certain things that I don't know how to approach or say or act, like, in the gathering and things like that. Like, I'm not part of it. I don't understand certain culture of Somali culture itself. And I'm learning still, and but I don't have that many Somali friends. And even my Somali got better when I moved to United States, because over there in Saudi Arabia I was just like around more Arab friends and Arab communities and not that many of Somali. So when I came in high school, people were like they thought I was Hispanic or something, and they're like, "Oh, are you Somali for real? Like, can you speak Somali?" And I'm like, "Please,
Leave me alone.
خليني في حالي. Like, I don't know what you're saying right now. Please leave me alone."
Yeah.
So I just like end up, practicing more the Somali language, so I don't. When I come to Somali person, like I don't want them to assume that like I'm like a high up here and denying that I'm Somali and things
Right,
like that.
right.
But this is who I am. I don't know the language very well, but I'm learning now.
Yeah.
So when you come and talk to me, like I don't want them to feel that I'm ignoring it, because I was I was born in Kenya and I grew up Saudi Arabia. I don't consider myself Somali at all. So most of the time when I go to places, they're like, "Oh, are you Somali? What type of Somali?" I don't even know the tribes and all the Somali stuff that's happening. I'm like, I don't know, but I'm Somali,
Yeah.
Like my family left the country a long time, so I learned what is, called tribes and everything here in the United States, because in Saudi Arabia they don't even talk that much about, like, or maybe because the area that I grew up, it was like more like isolated in Arab society with Arab people. But when I came here, that was the first time that I learned all those stuff, and I'm trying to fit in so hard, but I'm like, it is what it is. I don't have to stress myself.
Yeah.
I be me. I be who I am. I go to Minneapolis a lot.
Yeah.
I don't wear hijab. I dress normal, and they make prayers for me. They're like, make God one day, make you a better, cause like far from the culture, I guess.
Yeah.
So, Fortune, so as a mother,
Like, you say you're a third culture kid or a woman. Like, what culture or what morals do you want your kids like to uphold? Like,
I mean, I try my best to be a great parent.
You are a good parent.
Teach my kids like right and wrong. Teach them about my religion, which is Islam, and like make them, no, I'm not trying to force them to be Somali, or like become too Americanized. Even though my son one time is like, I don't know other country. This is my country. This is my home.
Yeah.
And I just want them to, like have the opportunity to learn about like where the original are from, and like learn what is right and what's wrong, and from there on it's their decision whatever they want to be in the future. But like for me, I want them just to be successful, like humble and hardworking, because whatever you do in life, we just leave things behind, so it's not for us forever to keep. So I just want them to know that, like, okay, whatever you have, we're not promised tomorrow. Like, be humble, be kind to others, and yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder too, just on that same point about like parenting, have you found it difficult because you're also learning more about Somalia, you're learning Somali and stuff? Do you feel like that's a learning experience that you're able to share with your kids, or do you find that like because they're kind of removed from it, they're almost like we're not really interested in this? Like how is that experience?
So my ex, his mom, she doesn't speak English at all.
Only
So,
Somali?
Only Somali.
Wow.
So my kids at home, we speak English. Like, even though sometimes I try to talk to them in Somali and stuff, they look at me like, what are you saying? Talk to me in English. Don't talk to me in this language. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I take them to their grandma so she can, like, teach them the language and stuff. I take them to Islamic school so they can learn a little bit Arabic and, the religion and other things. I am part of the Sudanese community because when I arrived back in 2007, so they were the first people that I met. And ever since we were like close friends, like almost like sisters. And my kids, they sometimes say, oh, we consider ourselves Sudanese, like, let's go to Sudan. I'm like, no, we're not. But then you said, so-and-so, your sister, your friends ever since, but you hang out with them most of the time, like, let's become Sudanese, kind of, in a way. I'm like, no. So I try to have their side of the family, like from their dad side of the family, and the interaction, and learn the Somali culture because they are more Somali than I am. Sorry to say that, but like my Somali culture is not so great, like, and I don't associate myself or like hang out with the communities that much. I have like some Somali friends who grew up in Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and other places that are also the same stage as me because they don't know nothing about Somalia too, but they speak the language and they speak Arabic. So when we even gather, we don't speak that much Somali. We're speaking in Arabic all the time.
Yeah.
So,
and it's so interesting too because it's like that's to no fault of your own, right? Like it's. I really appreciate you using the word stolen because I think that places an emphasis on the fact that like this is an experience. This is a part of my identity that was taken from me by a circumstance that was beyond my control. Like, and I think that when people think about immigrants and refugees and people who have been displaced, they don't remember that like this status that these people have, it's not a choice. It's a circumstance that was beyond their control that ultimately impacted the course of their lives.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you using that language and explaining it in this way is really important. And I appreciate you, being so open about that experience, because it's something that I think for some reason people need to be reminded of. You don't think
And
that.
we don't talk a lot about it. That's the other thing, like that we don't talk a lot about it. Like we don't question what causing this person to be at this place, or like what was the reason behind it. And if we don't open those doors so people can learn and see what brought us here and what we're going through, like maybe they will, most of the time, like there are few people that will put, their like themselves in your shoes, and people who are selfish and who don't understand. And we have like all type of humans that, so the best way is to approach and to teach is like by speaking out loud and speaking your mind and saying, hey, I'm not here by choice.
Yes.
Like, there are so many things has happened for me to be here and still working hard to be able to obtain, the life that I have. It has not been an easy.
I think that's ultimately that's one thing that we still haven't, like you said, people don't talk about it. People don't know that immigrant, have a choice to come here, and immigrants can decide to go wherever they want. By refugees, they don't have a choice. They don't even know that they're coming to either the U.S. or Germany or France.
Yeah.
They find out usually pretty late, and they spend so many years in camps.
I know.
And that's what people. I won't call it ignorance. It's just like probably lack of, I don't know, willingness to learn. So they don't want to learn. They don't want to open the door, like you said, for to learn like new things about people or countries or Africa as a whole, because people don't know anything about. Some people don't know anything about Africa. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So the other day I was like scrolling on the internet and I fell on this post. It's like once you leave your hometown, your mindset and view of life change. You grow and change, but once you go back home, it feels like time stood still there and you have outgrown it. So like my question to you, have you ever been back home yet?
No.
No? Let's say you go back home, if the person like you've become here, do you think you'll still like feel like you're home, or do you feel like, you have outgrown it? And if you do, like what would you say is your home? Exactly.
To me, like there was like multiple times that deep down inside me that I feel homeless. Like it doesn't matter the home that I have, you know. It doesn't matter if I'm living in a mansion or not. Like a home is where you have all your friends, all your family, and all your relatives in a safe environment. But like I feel like all of my family members, like aunt, uncles, everybody is all around the world because they are refugees and they are not in the same space. Like even if I go back home, which is Somalia, like some of my family members, they are not there. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to see that. Like my friend, she just went to Egypt and she met with her grandpa, grandma, uncles, auntie, their kids, their grandkids, and the great kids, all of them in the same place. As she shared her stories on Snapchat, I'm like, I have never had the experience to feel like what it's like to have the extent of the family members around me.
When
And if I go back to Somalia, most of my family members they are in Europe, in Germany, in London, in Sweden, in Saudi, like all over the place. So I will always feel that deep inside my heart. And it's something that I know I can never be able to fulfill it because as long the war is happening in Somalia, it's something that I don't know if it will ever gonna happen.
so you don't feel like this place like your home now, like Colorado, like the U.S. No.
A home that where I'm stable, living with my kids and some of friends and family member, but I don't have my entire family in here. So, and I always get reminded that this is not my country because my skin color, my accent.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel that you're home? Home.
That actually, that's a good question because I have a friend that went back to Congo, and when he came back here, he told me that he just didn't feel like he was home anymore. He felt like everything that was happening there just didn't fit the person that he became. So like when he came back here, even here, he doesn't even feel like it's home. So he feel like there's no where I can
Exactly.
call home anymore.
Exactly.
So I feel like that's kind of challenge for a lot of immigrants.
It
And I think
is.
that I was just gonna say that I think that the correlation between the two things that both of you are saying and even what you asked her and the stories that you shared about your friends is that, you know, your friend left the Congo that okay, there has been conflict in Congo for X amount of time, but even as you have previously shared, to a certain point, you were shielded from it, right? Like it didn't affect me, to now going back to where it's affecting a lot more of the country, and so going home and seeing all the things that are happening and how people are living and all the everything that's going on around, then you're like, this isn't this isn't how I remember this being, or this isn't how this is supposed to be. And so what's what you were saying, Fartun, too, about like conflict. And I think that like the thread that I'm seeing as we talk is like these are the consequences of conflict, right? And the drivers, like this is a result of what happens when there's conflict. And I'm hearing you both talk about like the people level, like this is how people are impacted by conflict, because I think in conflict it's so easy to overlook the people, the individual people, right? And to look at like, oh, this political party is gaining, or oh, this government entity is gaining, or this religious group is gaining, or whatever, or tribally, but forgetting how conflict literally impacts individuals, like on the smallest scale. A 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, an unborn child, like you were, is automatically by default affected by conflict. And I think that that's an important thing to recognize as we kind of have these conversations. And just on the point of displacement, I know you had something to say, but
I don't know. I think I forgot
sorry.
yeah, I lost my train of thought. But I would say though, how many languages do you speak?
I speak Arabic, Somali, and English. A little bit of Urdu because I used to love watching Bollywood movies. So yeah, ever since I came here, I haven't been watching that much, but I was able to have like a normal conversation in Urdu
Yeah.
when I first came.
So even like before we move, fast forward, but like before we even go into other questioning, I think I just wanted to understand more. Being born in Kenya, you know, how many years did you spend in Kenya? How many years you spent in Saudi Arabia before moving? And how were you able to adapt? I mean, you were a kid, so it's like it's natural for like at that age to adapt to like culture and to kind of like integrate with other kid. But do you always feel like you were like an outsider? You didn't really, like belong in a culture, or you were like curious to like because you tell me you learn about Somalia too. So like how did like all this thing moving from Kenya to Saudi Arabia and now to the US, which was like probably a major shift because you both of this country as a communal type of living, and you come here which is like individual, like you have to do everything on your own and stuff. So how were you able to like, cope with all this thing?
So as a kid, I I had no like the concept of understanding what culture is or like what you need to do and like groups of people and all those kind of stuff. So wherever I go or wherever my family went, I went along with them. I lived there. It was like I was not aware of like the impact that in my future that I was getting from. So in Kenya, we stayed like till age 4. Like didn't remember much. I was still a child. In Saudi Arabia, I remember going to the stores, like speaking the language without struggling to learn it, and I was like fastly adapting the life over there. And when I came here to America, I was shocked. First of all, I came in Thanksgiving time. So they had the turkey. I was like, what is in this chicken? Because this is not a normal size. And the cups were so huge that I was like, oh my God, this looks like almost like a jack of the water. And then the plates were so huge and the spoons, I was like, oh no. So I end up not eating that night. Like right after we came from the airport, it was snowing. The next morning, I was like out and walking and seeing the snowfalls. And it was the first time of my life seeing that. I was like, oh my God, I start grabbing the snow. And it was just like, still, I was in the process of like learning culture and all those stuff was not impacting my life as much. So soon when I got married and I have my own kids and as I grew older, I became more and more aware of like the dynamic of what is surrounding me and like who I am as a person and learning all those stuff. So like eventually, there are things that we can change and there are things that you just have to leave it as is until the next chapter of life. So I'm in the process of still learning, and figuring out things, but it started more like when I moved here and as my teenage life till now living here, I was like this is the time like my life here I was able to be exposed and learn what is my culture, where I am from, and all those stuff.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you a little bit too, just about like the experience of like experiencing displacement, right? Because earlier, Rosie, you mentioned camps, and it's true, like a lot of refugees do live in camps, but a lot of refugees also don't live in camps and are urban refugees or live in different kinds of situations. And so I wondered for you, like what your family situation was in Kenya, and then also when you were in Saudi, was it like an urban refugee situation? Were you even refugees in Saudi? Like, were you identified as refugees in Saudi? Were you registered as refugees in Saudi? Like, how was that whole
In
journey?
Saudi and in Kenya, we were like, as I was told, because I don't remember.
Right.
We were in one of the refugee camps, and then when we moved to Saudi Arabia, there's no like refugee camps. Like you are there, refugee, or more like immigrant. You immigrated there because the refugee camp was taking so long for people to get out of there. And my family, they didn't want it to stay there, like no jobs and things like that. And we moved. So my parents, they left to come here. And we were left, me and my other siblings, with my grandparents. And over there, like you are immigrant, like you are not refugee because you don't get any benefits, you don't get any support. So my family, my parents and my aunt and uncles and everybody else, like were supporting us in Saudi Arabia. And when I moved here, like back in 2007, it was like a little bit different because I didn't go through what they call it, a resettlement agency, but I have friends who came through resettlement agency, and I was able to connect with them, go to those resettlement agencies, attend like different events and things like that. And from there, like, I grew in learning the what it's like to live in America, like as a teenager, like making sure not getting in trouble. Definitely. So, yeah, like in Saudi Arabia, there's no services.
Yeah.
In Kenya, I don't remember a lot. I don't know nothing. They couldn't leave. And in America, my parents were already here working and stuff, so I didn't need anything. They registered me to school, attending school, but I was not sure like what I want to be in the future. So from there on, like being connected to good friends and good people helped me to get through high school, because like we're always, I see them doing well. I wanted to do the same, So, yeah.
Well, let's come back now to just like advice for like, other refugees, because I know you didn't spend so much time in Kenya, and you say you were a little bit, you were 4 years old, so you don't remember that much. One of the things that I've particularly noticed with like in refugee resettlement and our African brother and sister, moving from Africa to here in the U.S. is the system as a whole kind of like don't fail refugees, but like don't give them opportunity to start a life where they're in a refugee camp, right? So when they come here, you are lucky if you find someone who are speaking English, right? And usually the people who speak English they're usually going to be the success story and more successful and stuff here in the U.S. because they already know the language, right? Your parents, I'm wondering what was the experience for your parents? What if they told you anything in like being in Kenya? They were not able to work, but like were they able to even like get some type of like informal education, even if like they already were doing successfully good in Somalia, but like in Kenya, did they allow them to do anything at all? In like moving to Saudi Arabia, were you like able to attend school like normal, children there, and your parents were able to work or anything, or the only solution was, we need to just pack up our stuff and move again so we can offer better living situation for our children?
I mean, like as a family, the African parents, how they raise, like they don't want you to know about their worries. They will provide for you the food and provide for you the clothing. They never like openly talked about the struggles. So they always showed that they were capable of taking care of us, and we didn't have to worry about it. And that's the same kind of model that I use with my kids. I'm like, I got it. I got you. Whatever you need,
Don't worry about it.
don't worry about it. They don't know how much I make or how much I don't make. Like that's how I was raised. Like my parents, they never tell me how much they make, how much they don't make.
Yeah.
But as of like their life and their struggles, they have never mentioned, like, talk about and discuss those things, like, but they were always there supporting and providing and making sure for our safety. So as they were as they when I came here to live together, even there's like no that much of conversation about the struggle. Like, we'll go out, eat, go to school, do your activities, your homework, be participating in sports. I could see that they wanted to provide for me things that they didn't have. So like, they brought me here, understanding the concept of like why they brought me here, like for that reason. Like, I wanted to do good as well. Like, I want to do my part. My part, if it's like going to school, getting good grades, doing my work, like helping out the chores around the house. So for them, I'm sure it has been tough for them to learn the language, to find a job, and all that stuff. Like going to Emily Griffith or something, getting certificate to be able to do some type of other jobs. I remember like seeing a picture of my mom like back in Somalia. She was enrolled in like a school, like with her other classmates and stuff, and she was like, her plan was to go to finish like a study, working in the airport kind of stuff, like not flight attendant, but like the people that monitor like when the flights are landing and things like that. So that's what she was going for school, but then the war happened, so she never get to finish that education. And so she briefly talked about that, and like I feel like even part of her life continuing, her education and stuff like that, been stolen from her. My my mom's dad was a pilot, and he was working for the military. So my mom's dad side the family, they were wealthy, had a big house, like he knew how to fly airplanes, big house and everything. So she was able to attend school in Somalia, but never had the chance to finish. Flee the war, got married in Kenya, had me and my siblings. Boom, life, that was it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I wanted to ask too, like, just to touch back on one of the topics that you mentioned earlier about your accent and about how people say things to you because of your accent or stereotype you. And I remember, I think it was a recent staff meeting that you guys had in your office, and I attended, and one of our colleagues was talking about how she wears a hijab, and she took her child to a doctor's appointment, and the doctor assumed that she needed an interpreter because she had an accent and because she was wearing a hijab,
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the person speaks fluent English, and so there was no need for an interpreter. But the doctor just heard one word from her, saw her in her hijab, and said, "Oh yeah, this lady needs an interpreter," And so I wonder for you, like, what your experiences have been, and if it was or has been shocking for you as you've grown up here in the States and had those experiences. You have an accent and people might assume things about you or jump to conclusions about you and your identity based on the way you speak and how that's been for you.
I mean, it happens a lot, and I just try to ignore it.
Yeah.
I say, you guys are ignorant because you don't know me. If you know me, or like you give yourself the opportunity to get to know me, then you will learn a lot about me, besides they just coming to jump into conclusion and say, oh yeah, this person definitely like need help and interpretation. All the time when I make an appointment for my kids and stuff like that, or like even for myself because of my name and things like that, they're like, oh, would you like an interpreter? Sometimes in my head, I'm like, yes, I do need it. Let me just, suffocate you and make you struggle a little bit. But, I'm just like, no, I'm okay. I'm good. Thank you. I don't need it. I can speak English.
So, Fortune, I'm curious. So, as an immigrant, like navigating, like, corporate America, like, can you tell us what are like some challenges like you face, like going through like corporate America, just like working here in the U.S. and all that stuff?
My challenges started like with the college, honestly. Like the American system, the American culture, and all those stuff. Like when you are a first generation, you don't know, what classes to take or what major to do, and all the stuff like not having a good advocate, like someone to give you good advice and tell you, hey, here are your options, laying down all those options for you. I knew when I finished high school I wanted to go to college right away. And then as I started college, I got pregnant with my son. And now the challenge is even more for me because I'm pregnant. I don't know what I want to major. I don't know like the college system. I don't know nothing. So after I had my son, I end up dropping out school because like being sick and stuff. When I came back in college, I was like having a hard time navigating, figuring out like the classes that I need to take and what is there for me to do, getting the application for the financial aid on and all the other stuff. Thank God that I was part of Denver Scholarship, DSF. So they helped me. I had a good advisor, and then I became a member in the trio in first generation student program. Then there where I had like advisors that tell me, oh, but at the same time there was like the assumption of now that I have a kid and like knowing myself too, like, oh, I cannot do something that's gonna need like a longer time or figuring out like what is the best. I was able to communicate that with my advisors for the scholarship program and the trio program, and from there I went to, after talking a lot with my advisors at Community College of Denver. Once I was close to finish my Associate of Art, I'm like, okay, I'm almost done. I don't know still what I want to do. I don't know what major I want to major in, but I want to do something related to health. So my advisor suggested to do healthcare management. And I knew always like I was, good working with people and always want to help out. And then they're like, oh, your major is not gonna get you to the the requirement credit, so you need to take a minor or you can do another major. But I was like, I'm already behind with dealing with kids, working, providing, and all that stuff. I had to do the social work. I'm like, yeah, I really like working with people, so I think doing the social work will help me. So I did the social work minor in social work, and then the healthcare management is a great program and education, but it just didn't work out for me as who I am, or I had a lot of people that did the same major, but also end up like not being able to get jobs in hospital because of their race, which is sad.
Yeah.
And didn't give like they didn't get the opportunity to practice what they went school for these many years. I'm glad I did the social work minor, and I love the job that I do, helping, working with refugee immigrants and all. But I know a few of my friends and like classmates who went back to school to do something different because of the major that they chose didn't work out,
Yeah.
and the minors that they did as well didn't help. So, and the way I I worked in a lot of different places too. I worked for Aurora Mental Health. I worked for Aurora campus, like all Metro and CCD. I worked for a rehabilitation center. Like there are some workspace or places that you find you are discriminated because of your who you are
Yeah.
and where you're from.
Yeah.
And there are people that always try to put you down or like, make you hate what you do. So just being aware and doing your best and like not focusing helped me. And that would be like one of the advice I give to anyone. Don't focus on others. If they are focusing on you because you are doing better than them, and whatever that they taken out is because they're not able to do what you're doing.
Yeah. So, just last question for me. Do you think your parents were always supportive about like your career choice or like the yeah?
She said
Because
immediately.
like immigrant parents,
Yeah.
when you're here in the U.S., they expect you to be a doctor, engineer,
Lawyer.
but you went with what you love.
Yeah.
Like how challenging was that? Like,
It was very challenging. Plus, like I had my kids while I was still attending college. It was not easy, journey for me. But and then every day, I'm like I am. If I take one class, I'm gonna be closer to where my finish line is, and it doesn't matter whether like I was told literally from family members what this degree is gonna do for me, and I'm just like it doesn't matter. I have it. I'm the first person in the whole family who have a college degree. That's huge for me. And through all my struggle, through pregnancy, through, falling down and always getting up and continuing and knowing where my target is and trying to achieve no matter how hard and how bad I struggle. That's what kept me going. And also, I don't want to just because my family members, they not believing in me. I had people like community that believed in me, like my trio advisor always like supported me when I felt like, oh, I cannot continue, I cannot do it. She always told me, whatever you need, you can come back to me and ask me, whether if it's money, whether if it's like help with your homework or getting your assignment, like having an issue with the advisor or something, just always let me know. So having like sometimes family they might not be like that supportive, but we also has other people that believe in us when we're not believing in ourselves, and then they see the potential that we can reach certain place because they see how hard we are working. Not everyone, like if people are discouraging you, there's always people that supporting you and can see that one day you will become the person that you wanted to become.
Definitely.
I have a question for all of you guys in the room. So, like, as refugees or immigrants that come here, so like, what advice would you give them? Because they are here, they're like, okay, I'm gonna go for the career that will make me the most money. But what if it's not something that they're comfortable with, or they like, or they're passionate about? And then later on, when they find themselves in that, space, they are a doctor, they hate it. Like, would you want them to go for their passion, which might not make them a lot of money, or would you want them to go for a career that actually make them money, but you won't actually make them happy or fulfilled?
Yeah.
What advice would you give them?
For me, I'm first generation, so my parents are immigrants. I was born here, and because of that, there was a heavy expectation placed on me. And my parents were immigrants who were also highly educated, and so the expectation almost quadrupled for me because it was like we already did all of these things. Now you need to do even better than we already did. Like we've already done it. So your only two options right now are doctor or lawyer because that's the only things that we haven't, yet done. And I was on the route to become a lawyer and I decided I don't want to do this. Like I could make a lot of money. I could also not make a lot of money and I just don't want to do it. And it was a constant push and pull. And like my brother is a doctor and the pride and joy of the family and stuff like that. But I just didn't I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a lawyer. That was just like where I landed on. And my mom and I used to argue a lot about it. And she finally came to a point where she was like, okay, I've seen that you really enjoy what you're doing. You're good at it. And actually there is money that you can make in what you're doing. Like
Yeah.
I'm not making tons of money, but I take care of myself. I provide for myself and along with my husband and, those things, blah, blah, blah. My husband also takes care of us. But, all these things. And so in my opinion, I feel like your job is something that you have to do every day for a long time. I'm not going to say the rest of your life, but it's something that you have to do every day for an extended period of time. Like, what good is all the money in the world if you are miserable? It's not going to be worth it because there are tons of people that have tons of money that they worked for and that they didn't work for, and that doesn't always equate to happiness. And I know our generation is like, haha, rah, rah, I'll be crying in my Maybach. Like, okay. I'm like, good for you crying in your Maybach. But like if we're being really real with ourselves, right? And I think that it
Yeah.
also is a matter of how you were raised and what you grew up in and where you believe that the source of happiness comes from, right? Like, do you believe that the source of happiness comes from material items and money? Or do you believe that the source of happiness comes from like fulfillment? So I know that that's kind of cliche, but like for me, it's work is so much more than a job, right? And you should be passionate about the things that you do and you should like the things that you do and you shouldn't just do it for money because you hear those stories of people who went back to school and got degrees in things that they thought would make them money, like you said, and they go back to do something else because it's just not working for them because maybe their heart's not in it or the opportunities are not there, whatever it may be. So I think that it should be what you're passionate about and what will make you happy over money, but again, being realistic about the fact that like if your dream is to become a professional soccer player, like have a backup plan because you can break a leg or tear a ligament and that's no longer an attainable dream for you. So we should all have multiple things that we're passionate about, multiple things that we care about, and things that we will be willing to put our energy and time into.
Myself, I will probably just add on to what Nali's saying. I am able to do what I want to do and what I'm really passionate about, and I believe that this thing will bring me a lot of money, right? Now, because of the time we're trying to associate, money to happiness, right? I think it's because when you move to the U.S., then you realize that in order for you to be happy, you need to have money, right? But when we're living in Africa, we don't need money to be happy. You just get up, eat, play soccer, gather around the table, start playing drums, music, dancing, and that's what happiness was for us, right? So like for immigrant refugee who are coming to the U.S. and wants definitely pursue something that you love, something that you love, but that thing will also bring you money. But like you have to learn how to be happy beside having money because the money, of course, I always talk about like how it's money, right? When you have money, money is not gonna change you, but the money is gonna reveal who you truly are. So like, if you are truly a bad person, then money gonna reveal that you're a bad person. If you're a good person, your money gonna do good things in the world, then your money will make you happy, right? Yeah.
Can-
It's like, at this generation and the economic that we're living in, it's a very, very tough for someone to be going or like even working in certain job because of the income that they are bringing in from this job. You could be happy in working in your career field, but it's not supporting you enough that you have to take additional job on top of that to make sure that you're able to cover your bills also is not okay. So with the inflation, with things getting expensive, like it's an ideal for everyone to go where the money is, but at the same time, it's just like you might not end up being happy for whatever you're gonna be doing. So
I know that we're running low on time, but if you'll allow me, I think that there's one question that we didn't ask Fartun that is important to ask. And you talked a lot about your work in Aurora Mental Health and all these kind of behavioral and mental health institutions. And earlier in the interview, you were talking about how, we don't talk about things, right? And like culturally, we don't talk about things, or like certain parenting styles don't allow you to talk about experiences and feelings and stuff. And I wondered, how have you now been able to incorporate like mental health into like your life, right? When you come from a background that doesn't always permit for mental health to be a part of your life.
So for a lot of cultures, they don't admit like the mental health need. And as I grew up here and like learning myself, even like what irritates me, when I need to take a break, like when I need to say, okay, enough is enough. It's important for us to be able to learn those. Certain cultures, we don't talk about mental health. We like oppress the person and say, you got this, you can do it. Like, even though emotionally inside the person could be like exhausted and feeling they cannot continue on, like not allowing them to speak out loud, talk about what bothers them and things like that. It's unhealthy because we don't want to keep that ongoing. And then they will teach, people end up teaching their kids and say, oh, it's okay, you got this, you don't need to talk about it. But talking about it helps like reduce the trauma. It reduces a lot of anxiousness, like helps you motivate your motivation. It helps us a lot about like becoming a better, because like we talked about this, we went over the situation or whatever the case is, and for like it won't be something that's you keep it in your chest. So always, like, if you don't want to go see a therapist, like have someone that's close friend, someone that you can trust to talk to, express those feelings. They are there. Like, we should not close our eyes and ears from the struggle that we're going through. And most of us, yes, we don't, but like we find therapies through having communication with our colleagues and friends and family members that are close to us, and just say, oh my God, today my day at work, it was crazy. You know?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Fartun,
Of course.
for sharing. And we have our last usual question that we always ask. I know you didn't take a lot of things from Somali culture, but one thing I have seen you take is spaghetti and banana. So.
Oh, I love that. Spaghetti and banana.
Spaghetti and banana. So I don't know if you can tell us where the spaghetti and banana comes from. And then also, tell us what your favorite food is from whatever culture, since you have been a part of a few different cultures. Tell us what your favorite food is and what is in it.
I love all kind of foods. I don't think I have a favorite food, but I have a favorite dessert. It's made with coffee, cookie, cream, and
Is it tiramisu?
it's like a tiramisu, but it's made it like a differently.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's one of my favorite.
Which country is it
dessert.
from? Or
God, I don't know. I don't know.
that's
But-
okay.
but like everyone makes it differently. Like the Arabic style is the best, I think. It's not
Okay.
like the tiramisu, but once one of my friend, I asked her aunt to make it for me because her engagement, she brought it for us. So I was like, I need this.
Yeah, that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
And what about the banana and the spaghetti? Nothing? You don't know?
I think Italian, Somalian mixed culture kind of stuff together. So I'm not sure.
Well, thank you so much, Fartun, for joining us today. It was really nice to get to talk with you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and hear your story. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought about today's episode. And then be sure to also follow us on all social media platforms. Thanks so much, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.